Good afternoon, philosophy classmates. Just kidding. What's up, y'all? I'm Julie Dudley. This is my class presentation, and my assigned section was Chapter 3, The Consumer as a Causal Agent, pages 66 through 76. And if y'all see a little yellow ball of fluffiness running around, just ignore it. That's my cat. He likes to get in the way of stuff. But yeah, just let y'all know. Anyways, so I posted a discussion thread for any of my classmates that had questions, and I was going to answer them in this video, but I got no responses. So what I'm going to do is attempt to dissect this chapter as if you guys haven't read it yet, because like me, this is my first year or any experience whatsoever with philosophy. But yeah, so I don't know a lot of big words. I kind of have to break things down to a super low level just to understand it. But overall, it helps me understand it better. So how I'm going to explain this chapter is how I broke it down for myself, and hopefully I can give y'all a little bit of a deeper understanding. So without further ado, story time. Alright. The objective or thesis of this chapter is, can culpability for a company's wrongdoing attach to consumers who buy the morally tainted products? I got that off of page 65. I got my little outline pulled out to the right. So if y'all see me looking this way, I'm just reading off of my outline. I won't do, when I say things from the text, I'm not going to go quote unquote, because that's just annoying. I'll just reference the page number, and y'all can go back and look at it for yourselves if you wish. So the first thing I'm going to define is culpability. I want to make sure that as I'm explaining this, we're on the same terms. The dictionary definition of culpability is responsibility for a fault or a wrong. It's a blame. Now, moral culpability, I got this from page 66, is a function of the differences one's actions make in this world. So, this chapter is pretty much asking, if I buy a product from an unethical company, a company who manufactures or produces in horrendous conditions, is my buying of that product me supporting those conditions? Is this blame, this culpability attached onto me from buying this product? I'm gonna attempt to. Alright, story time. This hat, right? I love this hat. It's my favorite hat. I wear it every day. I got this hat from Walmart for $15. Now, my hat was made in China. I don't know what kind of conditions my hat was made in, but say I went to some off the corner store in Colorado. Say slavery was illegal. Well, slavery is legal in Colorado. And I go to this store, and at this hat store, this undiscovered hat store, and I walk in, and I say, "Hey guys, I saw your hats in the window, and I liked it. I want a hat too." They said, "Okay." And they bring me into this dressing room, and in this dressing room there's a curtain. But I want to see what's behind that curtain. So the worker comes in and measures my head and gets all my head measurements so that this hat fits just right. Such a good hat, right? I said, "Okay." So then the worker goes out, and within an hour, my hat's ready. And I put the hat on my head, and I love it. If it's just right, it's such a good hat, good quality material. So I asked the store owner, "Excuse me, sir, how do you guys make these hats so wonderfully?" He says, "Okay, I'll show you." So he takes me in the dressing room, opens behind the curtain, and behind that, sorry, the cat was coming on the window. But behind this curtain is a little girl in chains, and she's an enslaved little girl making this hat against her will. And with the chains, she has just enough mobility to sew my hat. And I go up to the little girl and I thank her for making my hat. And she attempts to say something in response, but all of a sudden she's brutally punished because she's not allowed to associate with any customers. She has no humanity. She's a slave. She has nothing. She's not of value at all. And so, me buying this hat, that culpability will be attached to me because slavery is wrong. And me buying this hat, knowing how the hat was made, shows that I'm supporting this horrendous condition that this hat was made in. So this chapter attempts to answer this question by examining the causal account. Now, what is causal account? I want y'all to imagine a big tree. Now, this tree is the consequentialist approach. And the consequentialist approach is a view that many philosophers hold. A consequentialist determines the rightness or wrongness of their actions by the consequences of that action. So say you have this tree of consequentialism, and on the branch, this tree has a branch. Now, that branch is the causal account. Now, the causal account links personal responsibility to an action. If your individual actions contributed to a bad consequence, that blame is attached to you. You are morally culpable, just like me purchasing this hat that was made by an enslaved little girl, per se. Now, so you have your big tree consequentialism, you got your branch of causal account. Now imagine on this branch there's a blooming flower, right? And this blooming flower is the individual difference principle. And this is on page 66 where I got this definition. The individual difference principle states that I am accountable for a harm only if what I have done made a difference to that harm's occurrence. I am accountable only for the difference my action alone makes to the resulting of state affairs. Now, this flower seems to bloom straight to the point. If I contributed to something, I'm responsible for it. Period, point blank. Doesn't seem to get much simpler than that. But it's wrong. Because just like every flower pollinates. Those little particles of pollen are dispersed everywhere by wind. Now, what I like to think of it as, these little particles are... Come here, kitty. Okay. Now, these little particles are all the what ifs. Am I really that culpable if millions of others do it? What difference does my purchase make? Is my consumer purchase really that much of an impact on bad consequences? So, we could go back to last chapter where it talked about the chocolate bars, how enslaved children are forced to make cocoa beans. And then we could think to ourselves, well, if I purchase a Kit Kat, millions of other persons purchase Kit Kats. How responsible am I for this slavery? Am I really that responsible for it? Is my 75-cent purchase of a Kit Kat bar really that culpable for an entire enslaved civilization of children? Well, you can think about it that way, or this way. On page 73 of my section, my chapter broke collective action down into a mathematical response. Now, each contribution to a collective wrongdoing holds that agent morally culpable for their appropriate fraction of the wrongdoing. Out of that total amount, which is X, that agent's contribution is responsible for 1 over X. So, your purchase of that Kit Kat bar is morally culpable for 1 in 1 billionth of the total amount of culpability X. And I kind of came up with another little analogy. Say you got a big roll of sod, right? Now when you sod your yard and it's all spread out, you have a nice even patch of grass. But if you were to suddenly roll that sod back up, you're going to have a big ball of dirt. Now that sod rolling back up is what I like to think about as each person's tiny little purchase that overall contributes to an unethical organization or corporation or workplace. Each little purchase is adding on top of one another, rolling up to a huge ball, and all of a sudden you got this big problem. Because enslaving children to make cocoa beans is a problem. The little enslaved girl that made my hat is a problem. And my contribution to buying this hat was just that sod rolling up to a bigger problem. Story time. Right. My chapter defined a historical event. This event was the bombing of Dresden in World War II. I did some research. Dresden is the capital of state Saxony in Germany. During World War II, what is my cat doing back there? During World War II, Dresden was a huge railroad transportation and communication outlet for our enemy, the Germans. So between February 13th and February 15th of 1945, 3,900 tons of incendiary devices were dropped on Dresden, killing 25,000. Now, these 25,000, they were children, there were mothers, sisters, brothers, fathers, soldiers, all kinds of people, babies. Now, 722 of the bombers were British Royal Air Force, and 520 were U.S. Air Force bombers. Now, each soldier's small contribution, each soldier's, I'm not going to say little bomb, but each soldier's bomb turned into a big bomb, and that big explosion ruined a whole city. It took out an entire civilization almost, 25,000 people. Now, yeah, think about it. How big was each soldier's contribution? But then again, you got to put yourself in those soldiers' shoes. What would have happened if those soldiers refused to drop a bomb? I mean, they're soldiers. You can't refuse orders, or else you get a dishonorable discharge, even treason. And that'll affect you for the rest of your life. You won't be able to get a good job, or that'll just affect everything. You won't be able to make anything of yourself with a dishonorable discharge. And then the chapter went on to compare this historical event to unethical corporations. So it's comparing the soldiers dropping bombs to employees that work in a corporation. And the corporation, so it could be employees that work in a Kit Kat corporation, right? The employees might know that they're getting cocoa beans from enslaved children. I'm not saying Kit Kat does. I'm not sure. I'm just using this as an example, just to make this clear. But say Kit Kat does get cheap cocoa beans from enslaved children, and the employees working for it know this. Are the employees morally culpable though? Because at the end of the day, all these employees are trying to do is feed their children, right? They have a family to feed. And how's that employee going to feed their kids if they don't have a job? How can a soldier refuse orders if he's going to get a dishonorable discharge that'll ruin his life? My section concluded itself on page 76 by defining two types of, I gotta say this word, utilitarianism. Right. So thank you, Kinsley, for this definition. Utilitarianists are people who do whatever means necessary, right or wrong, in order to benefit the good of the whole. My book defined two types of utilitarianism. Act defines the rightness or wrongness of an action by evaluating the consequences of individual actions. And then rule utilitarianism bases morality off of a set of rules created for the best long-term consequences. The action is right if it aligns with these rules, and wrong if these rules are violated. Rule utilitarianism is based off of everyone's actions and not just an individual's. I'm going to conclude my video by, I want to respond to one of y'all's discussion posts. I looked at Jeffrey's discussion post, and he was talking about blood diamonds and how, as a result of war, captured soldiers and villages that belong to the enemy, mothers, children, all these people are enslaved to produce diamonds. And a lot of these diamonds make their way to the U.S., and they're called blood diamonds because they're diamonds produced from slaves as a result of war. And they got me thinking that Jeffrey said that culpability shouldn't necessarily be confined to the consumer, but it should be blamed on the people that promote the actions. So everyone gets married at some point, right? All my female classmates, if you got a ring on your finger and that ring has a diamond on it, Where is that diamond from? If that diamond, my cat is gonna get it after this video. Alright, if that diamond was mined by an enslaved little boy, are you morally culpable for wearing this diamond, right? Or is your husband morally culpable for buying that diamond? Or scratch that. Is the jeweler you bought the diamond from morally culpable from buying the diamond from an enslaved corporation who enslaves children? Or are the enforcers of the slaves responsible? Are they culpable for the enslavement of these children? So this is how long a simple question like this can drag out. And I'm not gonna drag on any further. I think I've made my point pretty well. I hope that my explanation, I'm sorry I couldn't say a lot of the words utilitarianism, or I cannot say that word for the life of me. But I'll conclude my video. I really wish y'all the best of luck with the rest of class this semester. For those of y'all who got summer coming up, heck yeah. And for those like me that are taking summer classes, it's not over yet. But good luck, y'all. Keep trucking and get a good grade in this class. Wish y'all the best. Bye.